Hey guys, so this step of the video we're going to do the rear axle and the suspension in the back. There's a lot of ways you can do this, but I'm going to show you kind of like a more stock way. I was going to show you how to do engine bay stuff, but it's same as the back. Like the wheel well, same idea, just it's in there. Did some cross member stuff, some frame stuff, but other than that, it's pretty much the same. So from here, trailing arms, I'll normally fold up aluminum a couple times, as you can see, something like this, about this wide, and then you just bend it 90, so it's like angle iron, and then you just bend it to the shape of the frame, as you can see, and then you get pliers to smoothen that out, as you can see. It's hard to see, but it was kinked, and I pressed it with pliers, and it's still kinked, but it's nice and tight. But from here, you're going to want to, I'm actually getting ahead of myself. You're going to want to get a tube that clothes hanger fits in, kind of like the front axle. A tube or roll up aluminum. As you can see, it rolls. These are not the tires I'm using, but they're roughly the same size. And I recommend putting on the front tires of the size you're going to use. Not permanently, but just to set this up. So, as you can see, it goes like this. And where the axle is going to sit, I cut it so it can sit flat in there. So, like that. As you can see, it sits pretty good in the wheel well, so I'll do this to the other side, and then we're going to glue them in like this, and I'll show you what you do from there. So we got both sides made. Make sure they're opposites. I've made the same side twice, and it sucks. So just make sure you do opposites. Make sure these also sit kind of where you need them to go. And just glue them in on the frame. So now we got those in there. So you cut out those and you flatten those. And you're just gonna glue the axle in onto those. And then you're gonna fold these around and glue them all the way around and make sure it's secure everywhere. And then you'll do your upper bars or a panhard bar, whatever you want to do. So yeah, I'll show you once I get these lower control arms kind of set. So now that you got them in there, wrapped around, glued in there, now you're going to want to set your ride height. And this is why you want your wheels on there, roughly the size you're going to use. So you're going to just adjust it how you want and go from there. So all you do to adjust these is bring it up. And you're going to have to just play with it, really. And then from there, just do your uppers. And you should be good to go. So I'll show you once I put my uppers in there. So for uppers, what I like to do is fold up aluminum. Again, bend it in half. And either you can do it this way, or, which is easier for gluing purposes, do it that way. So from there, you just cut and whatever, glue it on top of the axle, glue it on top of the packing tray there, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, so after that, you'll put in some shocks, and then the rear suspension's done. And I'll show you it once it's all done. So we got the uppers in there, as you can see, the triangle. Now we just put shocks in. Normally they go in front of the axle, just off the spring thing down to your axle. Sometimes I do it on top of the axle, but it's all up to you. It's all preference. So I'll show you that when it's all done. So there it is. So what I meant by shock, I more meant spring. You could put little shocks in there and whatnot, but I don't really want to. Just make sure your car is not too off center or off like wobbly wise. Like it's a little wobbly, but these wheels are wobbly, like if this one was on straight. But I'm not using those wheels anyway, but I got it in a rough spot where I can twist it to get it not so wobbly. But since this video is kind of a shorter one, I'm going to do bumpers in this video. I'm not going to show you front bumper because the back bumper is way easier to show you. And I'll just kind of tell you the differences with a front bumper. So yeah, we'll get started on that and I'll show you where to start. So for rear bumper, we're going to start with just plain old aluminum. Now, if I was doing a front bumper, paint cans, so like spray cans, butane cans, if they're empty, you relieve the pressure in them, and then this step is identical. The reason I use paint cans is because they're a lot stronger, and the rear bumpers you don't want to necessarily be too strong all the time. So I normally use just regular aluminum, but this is the same concept. So you take your material, whatever, if you want a strong bumper, you can use that on the back too, but you'll make C-channel pretty much, and I'll show you that. So we got our C-channel, or backing or whatever. You want it roughly the height of the bumper. So as you can see, like this would be a good size for this. Now from here, all you would do if you want a pointy is cut slits, bend it back, and whatever else. And then in a front bumper, I'll usually put a clothes hanger in there, like a piece of metal clothes hanger, like this. I'll put in there, so I'll bend it to shape, whatever. Bumpers can go on super complicated or like simple. But what I do with all of them is I'll mark it where the frame rails are. So I'll kind of get it center. Mark out where frame rails are going to be. There. And there. So from here, I'm going to put in a little hole right in the center, and I'll show you why. So I put holes in it. Now the reason I did that is so I can put these into the frame rail now. I usually cut these pretty short. They're just to put them into the frame so the bumpers don't pop off. Now with the fronts, I'll usually use clothes hanger for this. And then I'll glue them in. And remember, I also use thicker stuff for front bumpers. So there's that. I'm going to glue this in, and then I'm going to do the outer skin. So your backing, if this was a front bumper, this would be clothes hanger, and I'd also have a piece of clothes hanger going from end to end, whatever shape it is. So then you move on to the skin. So for a skin, you can get 3D printed stuff or off a model kit. Bumpers, and you can mold off of them. For example, I did a 76 before. There it is. It even has the holes in the backing for it and everything. So this one's a little bit more complicated, but same idea, same principle. It's all trial and error. So I'm just going to do a caddy rear bumper kind of looking skin, so nothing fancy. So there's the outer skin. It could be as fancy or not fancy as you want. Bumpers, maybe a little big, possibly. Not terrible. So from here, you just glue it on so it should fit. And you just glue the skin onto the backing. That's all you really need to do. So once you get that done, you can either cut your bumper now or put it on, then cut it. So from here, I'm going to cut it after, but you just heat up the end of your rails. both sides. I usually put a dab of glue on. And then you grab your bumper, make sure it's the right way. And you may have to heat it up while you're trying to get it in. There we go. Oops. Now from here, I'll just put a little thing of glue on there on the bottom, maybe on the side here. Then I call it good. Well, cut it obviously, but yeah. So there it is. I folded the floor over here. I might put dabs of glue on there, not glue it fully over. But yeah, there's the rear bumper, cut all the size. I also put notches in here from any other step. But yeah, you just do the same process on the front with thicker material for your backing. The front material, I usually use aluminum. And I put a clothes hanger in there so it doesn't bend back too far. Possibly fill it with glue. I've also filled it with solder, like solid solder, but that's almost too strong. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next step. After this, after the front bumper's on, I'll probably paint the inside, the underside, all primer, just because I like the inside to be a different color from the outside, so it just doesn't look so blah, kind of like this car does, because it's just same color on the inside as the outside. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next step.